خلونا نشوف ما قاله لنا كريس جارفيس رئيس بعثة صندوق النقد الدولي لمصر في حواره اللي سجلناه من مقر صندوق النقد الدولي في واشنطن بعد اجتماع الصندوق. هذا هو أول حوار يدلي به بعد اجتماع الصندوق. أهلا بكم معنا من واشنطن من صندوق النقد الدولي كريس جارفيس رئيس بعثة صندوق النقد الدولي إلى مصر. كريس, thank you for being with us on such a short notice.
Well, it's very nice to be talking to you again, Lamis, and nice to be able to be heard by people in Egypt.
Thank you. The board has approved the loan to the Egyptian government. Can you tell us anything about the meeting? Did we get, how was the voting? Can you disclose anything about the voting?
Well, you know, our board meetings are supposed to be confidential, but I can tell you that there was very strong support for Egypt in the board, as there has been in the international community throughout. I think everybody recognizes that Egypt is important in itself, important for the region, and important for the world.
What does this mean for us in Egypt? What does it mean for the Egyptian economy? What does it mean for the Egyptian people? Is this good news for the Egyptian people?
I certainly hope so. Yes, I think it is good news. I mean, I think, first of all, this shows the IMF's support for the government's program. It's a government-designed program, and I really liked the way that both the central bank governor and the prime minister and the ministers laid out what was in the program a week or so ago. And this is an expression of the IMF's support for that program and also the international community's support for that program. And I think it's really the IMF's financial support and advice can help, but the fundamental thing is that this is better policies that are being put into place. You have central banks, a liberalization of the exchange rate. I think it went beyond what a lot of people were expecting, but I think it's also exactly what Egypt needs to really get foreign exchange flowing into the country again. And on the government side, there's a comprehensive program with a mixture of actions that will help bring down the budget deficit, which will make more room for private sector growth and create jobs, and also social measures, social protection measures that will help reduce some of the difficulties in the adjustment process, especially for the poorest people. And I was very happy with the way that the Minister of Social Solidarity outlined some of those measures and was very explicit about them last week.
When will we get the first part of the loan, and when are we getting the second part, and how much is the first part?
We're very quick in the IMF. We don't mess about once the board is approved. So the first part will be deposited in an Egyptian account at the IMF today, I believe. And that is for somewhere between $2.7 and $2.75 billion. The reason I'm not exactly sure of the amount is that it's expressed in our own special currency called special drawing rights, and the value of that fluctuates from day to day against the US dollar. With regard to the second stage, that will probably come in the spring. The way the program is structured, there'll be 2 tranches in each year of the 3-year program for a total of 6 altogether. Most of the tranches are for $2 billion. The first one is for a bit more and the second for a bit less, because we wanted to give Egypt a bit more support at this point in the process.
You've mentioned in your statement that in the IMF statement that there are 5 revisions that are going to take place throughout the 3 years. What are the measures? What are you looking for within those revisions?
Well, most of the big things have been done at the start. You know, the liberalization of the foreign exchange regime, the VAT being enacted, the resumption of subsidies reform or fuel subsidies reform. These are some of the biggest things. What remains really is a question of keeping up with the effort in these areas, you know, continuing to be able to bring down the budget deficit, continuing in monetary policy to bring down inflation, and also on the foreign exchange side, really making the new regime work. And that's got off to a very good start. There are no significant new actions to be taken there, but there's often a lot of bumps in the road or decisions that need to be made on policies during this process. And what we'll be trying to do in these reviews is help guide the government and the central bank a bit in that process. And if things continue to be on track, and the aim is to keep on track, we continue to make the disbursements under the programme.
So are there other measures that the Egyptian government should take, for instance, before the coming spring, to take the rest of the other tranche of this year?
It is really at the moment a question of continuing with the policies that have been started. There are some steps in the structural reform where we'd like to see some action in the next few months. For example, one of the government's priorities is to reform the industrial licensing process, and it would be great to make some progress on that during the next 6 months. But we don't have a lot of kind of hard and fast rules on specific things that need to be done. It's more making sure that the whole policy package is leading towards the right kind of outcomes, to containing and then reducing inflation, and to bringing down the budget deficit, and to restoring growth and kind of kick-starting the process of job creation.
On reducing the deficit, are we talking about more subsidy reduction on the fuel?
Well, I mean, there's a programme that the government has with the aim of eliminating electricity subsidies over 5 years and most fuel subsidies over 3 years. And our programme is really picking up on that. There is no specific targeted measure for a further reduction of fuel subsidies before the first review of the programme. Have you agreed with the, or do you agree with the government on how do they spend that money, or it is not within the program? Well, yeah, the IMF's a little bit different from most organisations in that we don't allocate our money to specific projects. What we do, we lend to the central bank and to the government. What that does is make foreign exchange available for the central bank to spend on, say, fuel and food imports during the first few months of the programme to make the process go a bit easier. And then after that to start to build up reserves to more comfortable levels. And in terms of the budget, you know, the government follows its budget. We're not saying, well, our money goes for this and, you know, for some particular item of social welfare and some particular part of salaries. It's the whole budget. But what our money does is make available resources at a lower cost, probably, than the government could otherwise get them. And that helps with the whole process of financing the budget. Your statement also mentions the golden word, growth. How does this program, how does this loan, how does this deal could manage to help growth? I mean, you've been talking about a reduction of deficit. I mean, we're talking about reducing spending, but what about growth? How can we help growth? Well, we see it helping in a number of ways. I mean, first, the liberalisation of the exchange rate and the increased availability of foreign exchange that will bring will remove one constraint to growth. The fact that the exchange rate is more depreciated will stimulate exports, which will again create growth and jobs in export industries. And the process of adjustment of the budget while in itself that won't support growth, it does have consequences which support growth, because the government will need to borrow less from the banking system, and therefore the banking system will have more to lend to private business. And that leads to the third component of the government's program we're supporting, which is these. If the business climate is better, if more people are starting businesses and able to grow businesses and able to borrow from banks, that create jobs, then that's good for growth in the economy. And we can see Egypt rising to its potential and growing by maybe 5 or 6% a year in the years ahead, rather than the lower rates of growth that it's had in the last few years.
You have pledged support to the Egyptian government to get more finance from the international community, and you've done that within the G7. I think, did we get the full $6 billion from other countries? And which countries did we get the whole amount from?
Yes, the full $6 billion came. I could kind of step back more generally, because the $6 billion was just a kind of residual after others had done financing. I would say there's 3 strands of the financing of the program. The first is multilateral institutions like the IMF and the World Bank and the African Development Bank, and we have provided substantial finance and will continue to do that. The second strand is individual countries, and there was some money from regional partners, including notably the UAE, which deposited $1 billion. There was also quite a large sum made available by China in the form of a currency swap, but the formulation is technical, but the effect of it is that there'll be more money available for Egypt's reserves through that swap, and that was very large. And also several G7 countries contributed as part of a G7 process. And there I think the amount, it's not so much the amounts that are significant as the demonstration of support from the largest countries in the world economy, which is good. And then the third strand of it is actually market financing. There was some financing from private commercial banks in that. That Egypt was able to get many. I see private finance coming in through a potential Eurobond issue in the months ahead.
In 1 minute, because of the satellite booking, please, Chris, what do you tell the Egyptian people who are worried, and they always hear that the IMF, a deal with the IMF, a loan from the IMF would mean that their lives would get harder and harsher. What would you tell the people? Are we on the right track?
Yes, Egypt is on the right track. I mean, I think what I would like to say is that I know the last few months, and we know the last few months have been extraordinarily difficult. It gets better from here. The removal of some of the uncertainty about what foreign exchange rate policy will be is a tremendous boon and will help attract investment. The increased about the direction of the budget will also help to restore confidence.
Yes.
And there are also these specific social protection measures. If I had one final message, though, it would be that we want to hear from you. We want to know what you think will work for Egypt as well, because the people that live in Egypt know a lot more than we do about what will work on some of these vital structural issues which will help Egypt grow and create jobs.
Chris Jarvis, I want to thank you very much. I know you've been working very hard on this deal, and I hope to see you back in Cairo soon next time.
Yes, I look forward to it. Thank you very much, Lamis.
Thank you, كريس. ده كان كريس جارفيس رئيس بعثة صندوق النقد الدولي في ليل إلى مصر. كريس من الناس اللي اشتغلوا جامد جدا على الملف، يعني تفاصيل كتيرة جدا، كان دايما في لقاء يومي واتصال يومي مع الحكومة المصرية، وده أول تصريح يديه عقب الموافقة على قرض صندوق النقد الدولي لمصر بقيمة 12 مليار دولار. ده طبعا كان زي ما قلنا لكم كريس جارفيس. ده حوار سجلناه مع بالاقمار الصناعيه. زي ما سمعتوا كريس قال ان مصر على الطريق الصحيح، سيتحسن الوضع من الان. اتكلم على تفاصيل ال6 مليار دولار جات لنا منين. القضيه مش الفلوس، القضيه هو دعم المجتمع الدولي لمصر. اتكلم على اليورو بوند، ان هو ممكن يعني دلوقتي احنا هنطرح الدولار بوند واحتمال كمان يبقى في يورو بوند قادم. اتكلم ايضا على انه نعرف ان الاوضاع صعبه لكنها ستتحسن. اتكلم على الجروث والنمو، اتكلم على اهميه دفع الاستثمارات واهميه ايضا انه يعني نحمي الطبقات ضعيفه الدخل او محدوده الدخل. كريس قال انه هو برنامج مصري من الحكومه المصريه للحكومه المصريه او للشعب المصري، وانه هذا البرنامج بيتضمن 5 سنوات او يعني الغاء الدعم تماما على الكهرباء خلال 5 سنوات، والغاء الدعم تماما على المشتقات البتروليه خلال 3 سنوات. هل في تحرك آخر له علاقة بالمحروقات قبل الشريحة الجاية اللي هي هناخدها في الربيع؟ يعني سبرينج هناخدها حوالي في مارس تقريبا، هناخد ال1.5 مليار الأخرى. قال لا، مفيش أي تحركات أخرى فيما يتعلق بأسعار البنزين قبل مارس أو قبل الشريحة الجاية. ده مش معناه إن مفيش تحركات أخرى بعد كده، لا طبعا لازم يبتدي التخفيض التدريجي للدعم على البنزين. ده معناه إن احنا ممكن نشوف تحرك خلال سنة مثلا أو بعد ذلك في جون الجاي أو يونيو يوليو القادم. ودي توقعات، ده مش معلومات. أما عن الأموال ما قالش إن هو فيما ستنفق هذه الأموال. هم ما بيحددوش فيما ستنفق، ولكن جزء منها بيذهب لدعم الطبقات محدودة الدخل. وحيا السيدة وزيرة التعاون الدولي على برنامج كرامة وتكافل، وحيا الوزير المالية ومحافظ البنك المركزي أيضا على تعاملهم مع هذا الملف.